Hey guys, so today I'm going to be taking a look at an open source operating system, but rather than of the usual Linux variety, today I'm going to be trying out something different. Today, if you haven't worked out already, I'm going to be checking out Android x86, which is an attempt to port the ever so popular Android operating system, which is usually found on mobile phones and tablets, across to the desktop. And today I'm just going to take a bit of a brief look and see if it's any good. So, this at the moment isn't the full final version of Android x86. They're still in the development stages. What I've got here is the second release candidate, which I will of course link to down in the description below if you'd like to try out on perhaps a virtual machine, as I am doing so right now. But at the moment I don't think there's anyone involved with the project, or certainly not myself, that would recommend trying it on a mission critical machine, a machine that you might need to do work or anything on. Yeah, this is just an attempt to get Android working on the desktop, and let's see if it's any good. So I have got the live CD version running on this particular virtual machine, which as far as I can tell is identical to the installed version. The only difference with the installed version is that your changes save after a reboot. Now you can tell right off the bat that it's a direct mobile port, which obviously they're not trying to hide because the operating system is called Android x86, but you have to scroll. That does involve the drag type of scrolling. So as you can see here, I've got a mouse, but it effectively acts as a finger. I've got just the standard Android browser up here at the moment, and yeah, this is the release I've got down here, Android x86 4.4 release candidate 2, which was released on the 20th. So this is just the standard browser, but it connects to the internet reasonably enough. I've got a wired connection, and it picked that up right off the bat. It did ask me to try and configure it with my wireless network, which I'm sure you can do if the wireless does work out of the box, but I didn't even bother with it considering I've got a wired connection. So this is the Project Chronicle website, projectchronicle.com. If you don't know, it's a YouTube project which I'm involved in, but this is just, yeah, works pretty straightforward. So yeah, browsing across the board works pretty well. So pretty much it works almost identical to the Android operating system on my tablet. So you've got the three buttons here. This is the back button, this is the go to desktop button, and this is the check out all your open applications button. So I've checked out a few of the apps. The Twitch app seems to work well enough. There's the Google Drive. That's the Project 14 folder with all the images there. Google Drive works pretty fine. Just I think it comes pre-installed with the Android operating system, which is fine, which is something which you can arguably find a use for the Android x86, because there isn't actually a native Google Drive application for the Linux desktop, even though there's a program called InSync. I've done a video of that previously, which is pretty much as good as Google Drive, and you can get Google Drive working on your Linux desktop. You just can't use the official client. I've got Tumblr here, but as you can see, Tumblr, there's a few kinks in how Tumblr works out. Some of the backgrounds, I don't know if that's to do with the Tumblr app, the Tumblr app's compatibility with Android x86, anything like that. But by and large, Tumblr does kind of work alright, barring that small cosmetic thing. What else we got here? Got Google Drive, got Twitch, YouTube works a treat. YouTube works completely out the box. What have I got here? I think I've got an episode of SciShow, which I was testing it out. Of course.
Let me ask you this then. Do you drink and enjoy milk? How about ice cream? Can you do that without getting ill? Well then, congratulations! You are a mutant with a special superpower after all!
Okay, so that is, yeah, that's SciShow. I'm sure many of you guys are probably familiar with it. It's a channel worth checking out if you're interested in science. And again, of course, you still use the click and drag type of scrolling, which is not really great on the on my trackable, and I'm sure it's not particularly great with the mouse. Oh, just dragged out the menu there. See, as you can see, that's kind of the mistakes you make, because obviously moving your hand and moving your finger on the touchscreen is a lot easier in general than just doing so with your mouse. It's not difficult, it's just a little clunkier than you'd kind of want it to. I'm sure that if this distribution were to be in it for the long haul, which they look like they are, then this might be something that might be sort of worked on. But it's a cosmetic thing, it's a minor thing. At the moment, it clearly looks like they're actually just trying to get the port stable and working, and I think that's all anyone can ask of them at this point. But yeah, you've got your settings mode here. You've got airplane mode, which turns off the connectivity. Obviously, my PC doesn't have a battery, or it's not in the virtual machine anyway. Bluetooth is off. Low, you can power off here. So all standard stuff. I'm sure if you've got an Android phone yourself, you'll be familiar with all of this. There was one sort of noteworthy. I hesitate to call it a bug, because it's not really a bug. It's just where there's something that's set on for the mobile port that hasn't really come across onto the desktop port, which is the rotation, screen rotation. The problem with screen rotation that I found is that if you had an application which forced your device to use the portrait mode rather than the landscape mode, this version of Android x86 wouldn't immediately return you to the landscape mode. So you can actually end up with your operating system sort of on its side, as it were. I'll give you a demonstration. What I had to do is I had to install just a little app from the Google App Store just to manually choose my screen rotation. But if I wanted to do that, yeah, it would set my the portrait mode for my device, as it were, but it wouldn't automatically switch back. So, and of course, devices that wanted to use the portrait mode, sort of by mandatory, if the device or if the application demanded that you use the portrait mode, it's very unusable. As you can see, I'm having trouble sort of controlling my mouse. I've got to select landscape again, and once the resolution adjusts, yeah. So it's good that there's an application there, which is a freeware download from the App Store, and that sort of sorts that problem there and then, so you can get rid of that. So there's also Twitter works fine out the box, the Google Play Store, there's all your Google products. So I've been playing around with this for a couple of hours now, and I've got to say I've had a fair bit of fun doing it. It's very intuitive because my tablet is an Android tablet. It is still very evident that it's in its, it's still in its development phase. But they don't shy away from that at all. I downloaded just the second release candidate ISO, booted off of it in my virtual machine, and I had no problems with it at all, apart from, of course, the screen rotation and the bug with the tumbler. There were a few applications that weren't compatible that I expected it to be. These were usually multimedia applications, so that could actually very well be my virtual machine not being as courteous to the operating system as it could be. But overall, I've got to say, the Android x86 chaps have done a fantastic job here. And I think once we start seeing some stable releases come out of the development team, we're going to see a real use for a desktop Android. And there are a few reasons why. If I try and go back to, like I say, the scrolling is a little bit clunky, but that's obviously as a result of the touchscreen scrolling, not as the mouse scrolling. I would like to see some kind of implementation for that, perhaps. But yes, once they start rolling out a few final release stable distributions, what I possibly would recommend, off the bat, any touchscreen devices, this is obviously very suitable to, but then touchscreen devices tend to run on ARM architectures and would have Android on it anyway. So to say that it's for a market that it's kind of a bit silly. But there might be a market for it with touchscreens, or if they can get good mouse support, it might even be a good operating system to install on, say, an old netbook or something to give it a new lease of life. It seems to run quite light. I've had no performance problems at all. That being said, though, an old netbook today is probably still slower than your average tablet, and probably even a lot of phones, and especially in a couple of years' time, phones will start outperforming our old, netbooks and that kind of hardware. That being said, though, it does do some things that Linux doesn't do natively, like the Google Drive. It has a native Google Drive client. It has out-of-the-box YouTube support, although an increasing number of Linux distributions are coming with out-of-the-box Flash support and things. Actually, the Android operating system doesn't come with at least an easy-to-access Flash, Adobe Flash port. The YouTube videos and most of the other videos are actually non-Flash based. So, like for example, the YouTube app will take care of the YouTube videos, not Flash. But yeah, by and large, I think it's a fantastic distribution. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I appreciate all of the work that's going into it. And and their website. Okay, so it's not exactly newbie friendly. The whole operating system at the moment isn't newbie friendly, but it's very informative, and the information is laid out in a fantastic way. The installation, it even gives you how-tos on how to install onto virtual machines and so forth. It's a great bit of fun. I recommend anyone who's interested in operating systems to get a copy running on a virtual machine, just for perspective. Maybe you might want to do some screen captures of some Android games or anything like that, and it could quite possibly be a lot more easier to do that on a virtual machine rather than a actual portable device. So, like I said, fantastic project. By and large, I didn't see very many bugs on it, not nearly as many bugs as I was expecting. This is a slight criticism of it, but it's a criticism of Android in general, is that if you are someone who doesn't have a Google account, you're going to have a hard time running this operating system. It's very connected to the internet, as you might expect from a phone/tablet-based operating system. You can use it without a Google account, but it becomes somewhat difficult. Your applications are somewhat a little bit restricted because you might not have full access to the Google Play Store or whatever. You can still, of course, get I think it's called F-Droid, which is a software repository for the Android, which I'll check it out now. F-Droid, yeah, which is an free and open source repository for Android, which is awesome. I've got it, and it basically gives you open source. It's like a special program, basically, an app store in your Android operating system that exclusively provides free and open source software, just in case you wanted to have more free and open source software on your Android, and it works, of course, across all platforms as well. And I use it, and I've had no problems with it whatsoever. It's a good repository there, and also it gives you, often when you go through the App Store and you search for an app to do a specific job, it'll give you so much ad-supported software in the Google App Store, whereas with the free F-Droid, all of the software is free and open source and ad-free from what I've seen of it so far. So excellent stuff there. Across the board, fantastic operating system with Android x86. I can't wait to see some of the more stable versions which are more compatible across more lines of hardware, and maybe at some point we will see the day where it might in fact be worth installing a port of Android x86 onto maybe a netbook or some other piece of hardware, whereas this might actually have a use for, like a serious use, like a practical use. And I hope, and it'd be interesting to see if that comes around. So, guys, if you have tried this out, if you've seen it, if you like the look of it, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below, because I like to hear from you guys. So that's about it from me today. Thank you very, very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Take care now.